Well, firstly, thank you very much, Ramu. It's been nice to catch up with you, and we are very honored to get this award. So, truly appreciate. So, I think our business now has come to a scale where we have some free cash flow. Earlier, let's say 10, 15 years ago, we've always hand to mouth. And if we had to add another press or something, that year's cash flow would be rather strained. But now, given that we have some headroom, it's been easier to plan new expansions, etc. And we've been constantly adding capacity in, very carefully thought through, um, because our first objective is that the expansion should take place when there's a customer need for it, not so much that we just want to grow our top line, and also to improve the service, and most importantly not to drop margins. So I think that has been one thing, and the other is about investment in the right technology, better quality of output, and we have diversified our product portfolio, which has been a big factor in achieving this growth which we have experienced, especially post COVID. Essentially, we lay a lot of emphasis on utilizing the equipment properly. And actually, if you look at the theoretical capacity of any of these machines we buy, we utilize a very small fraction of it. I think that runs across the industry. So the idea is to be able to train people and plan jobs in such a way that we can maximize the utilization. And if there's far more that we can do, actually, if we compare to the best in the world, we are nowhere near that level. But in India, the other problem is that we are converting a wide array of substrates and different kind of jobs, which typical European or American plants don't have to do. So they are more homogeneous, I would say, and their productivity is very, very high. But we have to try to get there, because ultimately it's all about lowering our cost, and that's the main thing. Yeah, I think that you should enjoy doing what you do, and you should be it should be a pleasure to go and visit your operations or even your office or anywhere. So we put a lot of emphasis on the aesthetic, the working conditions, the comfort in which people work, etc. Sometimes I am pursuing it with our down the line people, that why don't we improve the thing, because we are habituated to a much better culture of working, and that is percolating all the way down. And therefore, I think you haven't been to Silvassa or Haridwar recently, maybe many years, and things have only gotten better, actually. So we are improving it day by day. So people should feel comfortable and happy to come and work in the environment to the extent we can, of course. And we're constantly upgrading. And that helps overall. So if you work in a smarter environment, you work also smarter. That's our belief. So workforce challenge, earlier the trend was that you would pick up people from the industry, and the training of fresh people was very limited. We used to pick some ITI boys, etc., but that was limited. But a couple of years ago, we uh, came to the idea, and pushed by the government as well, that we are now taking apprentices under the NAP scheme and the NAT scheme, and this has proved very successful. So we are constantly hiring new young straight out of the school, or the ITIs, etc., and they are got the basic skill set. Of course, maybe not in packaging, but they have the general aptitude, and they have worked out well. And maybe 30% or so don't continue once we confirm them, but the other 60, 70 becomes a good pool of talent at the to start with at the junior level. The NATS trainees are at a higher level. They are coming into management. Some are here in the office, some are in the factories. So this has been a good practice, and I came across this because we were reading about the German way, and in Germany this has been very instrumental in Germany's success, really, post-war. And in India, we have the capability of doing this with practical training. So this is a very good initiative, and we are going to keep expanding this because, and apart from that, the government is subsidizing almost 20-30% of the cost. So that itself is a very good thing and gives the kids an opportunity to get exposure. On the sustainability piece, this is very rapidly evolving. I think that the world as a whole has not yet come to the conclusion of where we are headed. Every day there's change in regulation. So whether it should be biodegradable or recyclable or compostable or single polymer, how the collection should be, what extent the recycled content has to be used, whether it should be recycled, whether it should be virgin. There is too much myth and too much wrong information, I would say. And so people really are not sure of where one should head. In our mind, we are quite clear that firstly, the packaging must be recyclable. That's a starting point. Because if it's not recyclable, then there's very limited you can do. And despite all the collection that you will do, there will be a significant part which is not going to be collected. So therefore, it could be biodegradable or compostable. So generally, recyclable may not biodegrade. So you cannot mix the two. But essentially, if a packaging is compostable, but home compostable or recyclable, then I feel that there is you win half the battle. So sustainability is something we have to uh, help in their evolution. And the governments and the regulators and the industry as a whole requires a lot more discussion. A lot is happening, and India has started on the right path of this EPR, which is good. At least the collection focus is there. Now, I think the next set of regulation should really evolve on the materials that are being used to be regulated, which right now is not so much the case. Yeah, I think the change is being driven more from customers, and most customers are quite focused that they want recyclable packaging ultimately, which is a good thing. So that answers the first step of my previous answer. And that is driving the change, really. And they are being driven by ultimately regulation, by their parent companies, by their CSR goals, etc. The converting industry's job is really to help and facilitate because the technology and the material being used is, has to be adept to meet those standards, which is not so easy, especially in flexible packaging, where it's primary packaging. Carton, in any case, has been very environmentally friendly. Some people have this perception that less use of paper is good because you don't cut enough trees. But actually, the forestry industry has no problem of cutting trees because they cut 5 trees and they plant 50 more. So there's no problem in cutting tree as such. And the paper mill process is quite sustainable. The amount of water they use is recycled considerably. So paper is, of course, a very good material, and most of it is recycled in any case. See, the industry has the capability, I would say. But if you want to make it truly sustainable today, because it's a chicken and egg situation, the cost is higher. So until regulation forces you to do it, on its own, it's very unlikely to happen. And also consumers in India are not paying so much attention to more sustainable packaging. A very small creamy layer is bothered about it. The rest of it is all price consciousness. So we are a long way away. But let's say if you go to a Western country, there the awareness is much higher, and they are truly moving towards more sustainable options, and they are discussing and talking only that. In India, we are not so conscious of it yet. So I think a long, while to go, and we as a developing country should not focus only on this. Obviously, we have to focus on sustainability in the long run and medium run. and we have to do it in the right way, but it will take some time, I think. It's not going to happen overnight. And the industry, but I would say that the regulator should always establish firm dates and give the industry enough time. Then they shouldn't extend it, because then otherwise the whole purpose gets defeated. I think mostly they're talking now of adoption of artificial intelligence. This is a very challenging field. We have to find how to bring that into the process. So far, there's not much of development in this respect. Some industries have started using it, and automation obviously seems to be the key area, because they're very labor intensive, and our industry is actually very labor intensive too. And in India, because of the lower per cost of labor, that so much attention isn't being paid. But if you go to a European packaging company, they employ maybe less than half of what we do for the similar level of output, or even maybe a third. But it requires far more homogeneousness for us to get that. So we have to ultimately get to that point, because getting labor today and managing them is not that easy. So automation and improving our work process, I think, is a very critical thing, which we have to think about in the future. No, think the expectation of customers today is that you should be at their doorstep. So there's far more regional activity happening. And I think one will have to become super multi-locational to be able to service customers. Although the highway network and the logistic is improving, so you're going to get to point A to point B much quicker, but yet the carbon footprint, etc., will get tracked. So this is something which we have to consider in future. I think from a packaging industry perspective, from a taxation area, there isn't so much concern, because we are charging GST on to our customers, who it's all passed through. So it's not a big deal. And import duties or etc. is also quite, I think it's at a decent level. This whole scheme of PLI and Make in India that they talk about, we are Make in India, we only make in India. And if you see a company like us, we've grown so much. Actually, if we track the number of employees we had, say 10, 20 years ago, and what we have today, and you take a compound growth rate, you take a compound growth rate of our export and our revenue, we are the ideal case for the government to focus upon for companies like us and many in the industry, and to encourage, to facilitate, expansions. I think now, if I had to meet the FM, the first thing I would say to her is to improve the micro level regulation in the cities that we operate in, so that expansion and etc. is much easier than what it is today. Acquiring land, building permission, etc. is quite still, not a very easy process. So more than a taxation perspective, I would try to get the ease of working truly much better. No, I think that for the industry as a whole, one should not look at what others are doing. One should carve one's own path. That is my general message. And bottom line focus is very important to be truly sustainable in the long run. Because companies which are not bottom line focused are going to find it very challenging going forward, because they're always stressed and they fall into that vicious circle which they're never going to come out of. So I think before one expands, etc., one should really deeply look internally and then do it. I mean, we wouldn't just go to some new location or big expansion just for because someone else is doing it. We should do it if we have a good understanding of the market segment that we're going to operate in, and not at the cost of dropping margins.